The class is 40 cadets. Graduation is a Friday in May. The locker room behind the auditorium is loud. Somebody's mother is crying. Somebody's wife is laughing. The chief is shaking hands, one at a time. You don't think about assignment yet. The assignment letter comes later. 6 months from now, depending on department, you'll find it folded inside an interdepartmental envelope, sometimes left on top of your locker, sometimes slid underneath. Patrol, SWAT, Narcotics, Vice, Homicide, Internal Affairs. You don't pick, you're handed one. The recruiting brochure never told you that each of those words is a different injury, a different sleep disorder, a different way to lose touch with the people in your house. The brochure showed badges and dog shake handshakes and a lone officer at a school career day. The brochure did not show the duty roster as the apparatus that decides which version of you walks out of policing in 20 years. Every police unit promises a different career. What it actually offers is a specific kind of damage. 6 units, 6 specific damages. We walk them through by assignment. Unit 1, the Patrol Officer. Patrol is the floor of American policing. Around 2/3 of sworn officers in this country never leave it. They retire patrol. 12-hour shifts on a 4-on, 3-off rotation, or some local variant of it. The radio runs constantly. You answer welfare checks at 3 in the morning, domestic disputes at 5 in the afternoon, traffic stops in between, school resource calls during the day, and, the part the recruiting flyer left out, pediatric scenes. A drowning, a SID-S call, a fentanyl exposure in a closet a 4-year-old found, a car on a county road with a child who wasn't in a seat. You are the first vehicle there. You secure it. You wait for the medical examiner. You take a statement from the parent who is screaming. You drive home at the end of the shift. Your own daughter is asleep in her room. You go in. You look at her for 10 minutes. You go back out and sit in the driveway. The Bureau of Justice Statistics, in its Law Enforcement Management and Administrative Statistics collection, the Federal Census of state and local agencies, places patrol cohort response volume somewhere between 800 and 1,200 incident calls per officer per year, depending on jurisdiction and shift coverage. The Violante studies out of SUNY Buffalo, the most cited longitudinal work in police mortality, NIOSH funded, find police suicide running roughly 1.5 times the US adult male baseline, with patrol cohort officers carrying the largest cumulative exposure to violent and accidental death. The damage shows up between year 7 and year 12, not before, after. It isn't the dramatic call that does it. The dramatic call is a one-off, and the department debriefs it. It's the 18th pediatric scene, not the first. Look at the hands of a patrol officer at the end of a 5th back-to-back shift week. They don't shake, they've stopped shaking. That is the more concerning state. The recruiting flyer did not say, your spouse will not be able to hear any of this. Your priest will not. The peer support officer might, if your department funds one. Most departments fund one badly. You carry it in your chest cavity and you call it normal. Unit 2, the SWAT operator. SWAT is what the public thinks of when it thinks of policing. The full kit, the stack at the door, the breach. Most departments run SWAT as a collateral assignment, meaning you have a primary job, usually patrol, and you train and deploy with the SWAT team on top of it. A high-volume metropolitan unit might run 200 call-outs a year. A rural sheriff's tactical team might run 12. The doctrine you operate under was rewritten by a single day. April 20th, 1999. Columbine High School, Jefferson County, Colorado. The Jefferson County SWAT team, by contemporary tactical doctrine, set up a containment perimeter and waited for full team assembly while the shooting was ongoing inside the library. The shooting lasted 49 minutes by the official report. The doctrine inside American policing changed after that. The new doctrine is called active shooter response, and it tells the first patrol officer on scene to enter the structure, alone in some versions, and engage the threat. Cross-reference the dates on every major active shooter event since. The response time is shorter. The patrol officer is the first one through the door, and the SWAT operator, who used to be the breach, is now sometimes second. The specific damage of SWAT is the hypervigilance carryover into off-duty life. Kevin Gilmartin, a former tactical officer who became a police psychologist, wrote a book in 2002 called Emotional Survival for Law Enforcement. It is required reading in many departments' wellness curricula. Gilmartin's model is what he calls the hypervigilance biological roller coaster. On shift, sustained sympathetic arousal. Off shift, parasympathetic crash that looks to your spouse like withdrawal. You sit in the recliner. You don't talk. You drink one beer and you fall asleep in your clothes. Your wife learns to schedule conversations for the morning of your second day off. By year 5, your sleep architecture has restructured around the rotation. By year 10, it does not unrestructure when you transfer to days. The damage of SWAT is that the family that left for the school in the morning is not the family the operator comes home to. The operator comes back to the same address. Unit 3, the Narcotics Detective. Narcotics is the unit that requires you to become someone you are not, for as long as the operation runs. You grow the hair out. You wear different clothes. You stop carrying anything with your name on it. The cover identity is built around a job you ostensibly do. Restaurant cook, day laborer, low-level dealer, and you live inside it for months. Long, deep cover assignments have historically run a year, and sometimes longer. Joseph Pistone, the FBI agent who spent 6 years inside the Bonanno family in New York and New Jersey as Donnie Brasco, a federal operation that closed in 1981, is the longest publicly documented version of the model. Most local narcotics work is shorter. The mechanism is the same. Check the cap table on a federal asset forfeiture year. The Department of Justice Asset Forfeiture Fund clears in the billions of dollars annually, much of it routed back to participating state and local agencies under equitable sharing. Your narcotics unit may be partially funded by what it seizes. The receipts exist. They are public in budget filings, line items the chief signs. The specific damage of narcotics is identity drift. Ellen Kirschman, the police family psychologist whose book I Love a Cop has been used in academy spouse orientations since the 90s, writes about post-undercover decompression as a category, not as an event. There is a documented pattern. The longer the cover, the harder the return. Officers who spend 18 months inside a methamphetamine distribution network and then are asked to write reports for a captain in a fluorescent room sometimes find that the captain's room does not feel real. The cover did. The cover had stakes. The captain's room has paperwork. The damage is not the danger of the work. The damage is that the version of yourself you used to do the work does not fully demobilize. A piece of him stays in the body. He is quieter than he was. He drinks differently. He answers his wife's question about the day with a single word and watches her decide not to ask again. A note before we continue. A question came up under the last video, repeatedly enough that I want to address it here rather than ignore it. Someone asked whether the things I describe, the Year 7 damage, the Year 12 sink and mug scene, are field knowledge, or are they assembled from public literature? The honest answer is the second. I have not worn a badge. What I am walking you through is the published longitudinal record. Violante, Gilmartin, Kirschman, Geberth. The Federal Commission reports, read against the consistent witness of officers who have spoken publicly about the work. If you want the answer to the next version of that question, what changes when the work is private contract security, or federal versus municipal, or sheriff versus city? That's the next video. If you want it in your feed, the subscribe button does that. If you have a question of your own, the comments are the place. Back to the units. Unit 4. The Vice Detective. Vice is the unit that handles what departments call quality of life crime, prostitution, gambling, narcotics on the public corner end, and, increasingly, in many jurisdictions, child exploitation work, absorbed from federal task forces. The unit has overlapping reach with narcotics, often shared personnel, sometimes the same desk in a smaller department. The work is largely undercover or surveillance. Vice is where the work begins to do something to your perception of strangers. You sit in a hotel room for 9 hours waiting for a sting buy to walk in. The buy walks in. He is a 47-year-old accountant from a suburb on the other side of the country. He has a daughter the same age as the woman in the room. You arrest him. You write the report. You go home. You see a man at the grocery store the next morning who looks roughly the same, and you cannot stop running his face. You assign probabilities to strangers. You don't tell anyone you're doing it. The vice detectives who work child exploitation queues are tracked by the federal government as one of the highest risk subgroups in law enforcement. The Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force Network, federally coordinated, beginning in 1998 under the Department of Justice's Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention, has documented elevated rates of vicarious trauma in its personnel and built mandatory mental health rotations into the program structure. The damage is documented at the federal level because it had to be. The exits from the unit are also documented. The specific damage of Vice is that the official lexicon for what is happening inside you arrives late. He doesn't say it out loud at home. He says it 12 years later to a therapist his department finally paid for. The lexicon arrives. It does not retroactively repair the years before the lexicon arrived. Unit 5. The Homicide Detective. Homicide is the unit the television show was built around. The clearance rates the television show implied, 8 out of 10 cases solved by the end of the episode, do not exist anywhere in American policing. The FBI Uniform Crime Report's clearance rate for murder, averaged across the country, has run below 50% in recent collections. In some large cities, it runs below 40%. The detective on a homicide unit holds a caseload that does not close. The standard reference work in this field is Practical Homicide Investigation by Vernon Geberth, a retired NYPD homicide commander. The book is in its 5th edition. Every working homicide detective in America has either read it or worked under someone who did. Geberth's documented thesis, built across 30 years of casework, is that the homicide detective develops what he calls the death investigator's photographic memory. The detective does not forget bodies. He remembers them in inventory, by body, by room, by the position of the hands. In my read of it, and I have spent the last several years on the published field literature, on departmental commission reports, on officer-written memoirs that are mostly out of print, the part the media gets wrong about homicide is not the heroism, it's the photographic recall. That is not a virtue of dedication. It is a physiological injury that does not downgrade with time. The detective does not work through it, he carries the inventory. Year 12. You are standing at your kitchen sink, rinsing a coffee mug on a Saturday morning. You realize there isn't a word in your vocabulary for what the last decade has done to the inside of you. Not in the department's vocabulary. They call it stress. They call it tenure. They call it eligible for promotion. Not in your spouse's. They call it work. There is one available word, and the word is fine. You have been using it. You have been using it for a long time. Unit 6. The Internal Affairs Investigator. Internal Affairs is the unit that investigates other officers. The work was structurally reorganized in many American departments after the Knapp Commission report of 1972, which investigated NYPD corruption following Detective Frank Serpico's testimony, and again after the Mullen Commission report of 1994, which investigated misconduct that had not been caught the first time. The receipts exist. The reports are public. The specific damage of internal affairs is social. The locker room knows what you do. The locker room stops inviting you. You don't get a chair pushed back when you walk into the unit muster room. You eat lunch at a table that has space at it. You are, inside the institution, a particular kind of stranger, wearing the same uniform as everyone in the room. The story most departments tell themselves about internal affairs is that it's the bureaucracy hunting the police. The story most internal affairs officers tell themselves is that they are the only ones doing the job that nobody else will. Both are true. The exhausted, isolated, drinking alone IA investigator in year 15, somebody whose colleagues never invited him to a retirement party, is also somebody who pulled an officer off the street who was beating people. Both. The same person. The Public Safety Officers Benefits Act of 1976 does not have a line item for what happens to this man at year 15. There isn't a federal compensation category for the version of injury that is social, accumulated, and earned in the line of duty by being right. The damage of internal affairs is the slow erosion of the colleague relationship as a category of human contact. By year 12, the only people he can talk to about the work are other IA officers in other departments. They meet once a year at a regional training. They drink in a hotel bar. They look like the rest of the conference, until you notice they don't quite know anyone else there. 6 o'clock in the morning in a precinct lot somewhere in this country. A patrol unit pulls in. The officer sits in the driver's seat for a moment longer than necessary before opening the door. The radio is off. The dashboard clock reads 6:03. Inside the precinct, another officer is already at the duty desk pre-shift, drinking coffee from a paper cup. Narcotics on a different rotation, not coming off, going on. The two of them haven't met. They wear the same patch. They will not work the same job. They will not break the same way. They will not retire on the same day. They will not be the same person in 20 years. The patch does not know that yet. The duty roster does. More of these ladders are coming. The subscribe button puts them in your feed.